Are you a fan of British children or talking animals? If not, too bad, you're just gonna have to grin and bear it. Ba-da-ba-ba-da-ba-ba. Hey everybody, I'm Andrew Fantasia. Welcome to Thumb Together Funny Pages, and today we're going to be talking about the Golden Compass together. I apologize in advance for all the crazy noise upstairs. The people who live up there are moving as we speak. See what I mean? And this is the only time I can record, but I'm going to do it anyway because I love you. Anyway, today on Funny Pages, we're going to be talking about the Golden Compass, which is the first book in the trilogy by Philip Pullman, called the His Dark Materials trilogy. Guys, the His Dark Materials trilogy, you might write it off as just being like a young person's book. You know, oh, this is for kids with magic and talking animals and stuff. Don't do that. Don't write it off like that, because His Dark Materials is freaking amazing. If you know what it's about, you know exactly why I'm raving. If you don't know what's about it, if you've never heard of His Dark Materials, I'm just going to read you the first sentence, okay? And that'll give you an idea of what you can expect. Here's the first sentence of this trilogy. Lyra and her demon moved through the darkening hall. Listen to that. Lyra and her demon moved through the darkening hall. That right there is like, there you go. There's a trilogy of books. Like, what is the deal there? A lot of great books start with really great sentences, and I think this is one of the greatest. Because here's the deal. You're probably thinking, okay, demon, what is going on here? What have I gotten myself into? The His Dark Materials trilogy takes place in an alternate universe. It takes place in London, Oxford University, in fact. So if you hail from Oxford, you'll know exactly what's going on here. And I'm going to stop with the accent before I offend some folks over at Oxford. But anyways, the world of this book is our world. It's got London, it's got, you know, countries and things that we're familiar with, like England and such. It's got America, but it's different. It's an alternate world where all kinds of crazy things have been altered, so to speak. And in this world, every human being's soul exists outside of their body as a talking animal called a demon. Your demon is with you from the moment you're born to the moment you die. It talks to you. It's your best friend. You're essentially best friends with your soul in this world. And that's our main character, Lyra, right there. And that's her demon. His name's Pan. And Pan he's this little talking animal who sits on her shoulder or like hangs around at her feet and just helps her out. If you're an animal lover, His Dark Materials is going to rock your effing world. Now here's another cool kicker. When you're a little kid, your demon can change its shape continuously to suit certain needs. Your demon could be a bird, or it could be a bee, or it could be a mouse, or a dog, or a cat, or a horse. It could be anything, really. Because as a kid, you yourself are changing and fluctuating and trying to find out, you know, what you're all about. And when you reach a certain age of adulthood, which is different for every person, your demon settles into a single form and stays that way for the rest of your life. This idea alone is brilliant. As a writer, I am in such delightful envy of Philip Pullman's idea of demons. It is fantastic. The idea of having your soul exist outside your body and its own character, and you know you're inseparable. If it moves too far away from you, it physically hurts. It could kill you if it gets too far away. That idea has so much potential for a fantasy setting, and they don't squander that potential in His Dark Materials. So that's the world of the book, but what about the book itself? What's going on in here? Well, if you've seen the movie from like 2009, first of all, forget that you've seen the movie from 2009. Won't be hard to do. We all have already. Swish. Even the people upstairs are laughing at that one. Now, the plot of The Golden Compass is as follows. Lyra lives at Oxford University. Her uncle is a very esteemed lord who presides over Oxford. And one day, Lyra is sort of spirited away by this woman named Mrs. Coulter. And Mrs. Coulter is this very glamorous woman. In the movie, she was played by Nicole Kidman, so that gives you an idea of just what kind of lady we're talking about here. And she's got this monkey demon, and they're both kind of shifty and pretty evil. Like, you do not trust Mrs. Coulter and her monkey. And they take Lyra away to the big city, and it seems like they're prepping her for something, but she doesn't know what. All Lyra knows is she's frightened, and she doesn't quite trust Mrs. Coulter, and she doesn't quite trust the people Mrs. Coulter hang out with. So one day Lyra decides to run away, and this whole book is essentially her adventure running away from Mrs. Coulter, meeting friends along the way, and learning and uncovering secrets about the world, about what Mrs. Coulter wants, about what her uncle, the Lord at Oxford, wants, and about what might happen if either of them get what they want. And I don't want to say too much more because this is a story that is very not black and white. You know, this isn't a story where Lyra's the good guy and then there's a bad guy who's called a Dark Lord and wears black robes and has skull tattoos and drinks Monster Energy drinks. This isn't that kind of story, kids. This is a very gray story. It's a very loosely interpretable story. Is that a word? It is now, Oxford. The story of his Dark Materials is famously known for being very, very complex and very, very adult. That's why people who write this off as a kid's book are very, very mistaken. It looks like a kid's book. Look, there's a little kid riding a bear. Like, you think, what's going on here? What is this, like Twilight with fuzzy animals now or something? No. This is legit one of the most adult stories you will ever read. It just happens to star kids, and it happens to be written in a very kid-friendly way, if that makes sense. Philip Pullman wrote a story that will include eventually, if not in this volume, then in the other two, war, death, implied rape sometimes, implied pedophilia sometimes, other really heady topics and issues that, you know, some kids might not be ready for. It's all packed into this, and he writes it with the sort of genuine, just straightforwardness, but friendliness and ease of someone like A.A. Milne, like who's just sitting writing about Winnie the Pooh. It's not, you know, like a triple G rated thing where Lyra's like, oh, and then I had the fabulous, grabulous, zip zoop zabulous time. It's not written like that. No, but it's written with a sense that a child can pick it up and almost understand everything that is going on. But the more the child reads it, the more the child grows up and continues to reflect on what they've read, the more they're like, oh shit, I just read some heavy stuff. The plot does continue on. It's not, you know, like a typical kids series where it's like, here's the end, and then we'll have another one that's about another adventure. This is very much a to be continued kind of ending. In fact, like, I'll just show you there. It just says end of book one. Like, it lets you know right away, this is a trilogy. Her story's not over. It ends on actually one of the most fierce, savage cliffhangers I have read in a book in a very long time. Maybe, like, it might be in, like, the top 5 cliffhangers of any book I've ever read. Off the top of my head, I can't think of many that are better than this. Except maybe the ones I wrote. Shameless plug! It's hard to review something like his Dark Materials because the plot is so complicated and so filled with spoilers that I can't really dig into it and make you appreciate what it's all about. All I'll say is, the title, His Dark Materials, is taken from a line in John Milton's Paradise Lost. If you have read Paradise Lost, the epic poem, it's kind of hard to get through, but it's neat. Beautiful visual imagery going on there. Check out Paradise Lost. But if you haven't read it, you won't be lost if you try to dive into this. This doesn't expect you to know the minutiae of Paradise Lost. However, if you do know the minutiae of Paradise Lost, you will see a lot of echoes of it happening in this book. It's almost like Philip Pullman analyzed the shit out of Paradise Lost, condensed it into something actually longer. I say condensed, but no, stretched it out into something more easily digestible with a stronger narrative and a more emotional journey, and turned it into a trilogy of books and said, yeah, kids and adults can read this. There you go. That is outstanding to think of. Like, just to imagine doing that. Like, just the thought of going to the library, finding an epic poem, reading it until I understand it back to front, and then turning it into something that's like an homage and a sequel and not really an homage or a sequel. It fries my brain, and I can only imagine what it's doing to you if you haven't read it, because you're thinking, what is this idiot with his Canada sweater talking about? Paradise Lost, polar bears, what the hell is going on? I'm unsubscribing from this channel right now. And I wouldn't blame you for thinking that way. All I can say is give this a shot, and I promise, you will walk away at the end of this book feeling something. A lot of books don't make you feel. They tell great stories, they feature great characters, but not many of them make you feel something when you're done. This will make you feel something when you're done. The trilogy will definitely make you feel something when you're done. The next episode of Funny Pages, I'll talk about book 2, which is called The Subtle Knife, and go into a little bit more depth of what's going on there. Here's a spoilery hint. You know how I said this takes place in a parallel universe? Well, our universe still exists too in this story. You know where I'm going with this now. And if you're one of those people who'd rather just watch the movie is not great. It has a good cast, but other than that, it's not great. There is, however, an HBO series coming out this year. In fact, it might already start to be trickling out in certain parts of the world. I have to double check. But His Dark Materials, HBO, is coming fast and furious. Something's got to fill the gap of Game of Thrones. Check out that show if you want. I'll be reviewing it here on the channel too. And if you like what you see, dive into the Golden Compass, dive into the books, because the books are almost always better, and you're gonna find out so much more about things you never thought you would learn about in a children's book. There's so much in this trilogy that I'm dying to talk about, but I can't because it's spoilery. But trust me when I say it makes you contemplate things ranging from the soul to how we interpret death, to how we interpret ghosts, to how nature and science and evolution can take place and can take place differently depending on different factors. This isn't Captain Underpants, kids. Sidebar, I love Captain Underpants too. This is some of the headiest shit you will ever read, but it's entertaining as well. And that alone is so hard to accomplish that I gotta give Philip Pullman the Andrew Fantasia clap of approval, which is something I just made up right now. Anyway, that is The Golden Compass, book 1 of His Dark Materials. This is absolutely a must-read. Get your ass out there, find a library, find a used bookstore, find an abandoned house that has books in it, and see if they have this, because it's worth your time. Trust me. That's been Thumb Together Funny Pages. I'm Andrew Fantasia. Thanks so much for tuning in. Despite all the noise and calamity happening around me, I'll see you here next time. Until then, adios.